Mail call, mail call, mail call. I just ordered something and you're gonna be here with me to unbox it. Then at some point I'll do a review, but not all at once because I actually want to get, you know, kind of a fair shake on this thing to see what it's gonna do. You guys remember that G-Shock that I unboxed? Maybe, I don't know if you watched that previous one or care, but I had unboxed Casio G-Shock, I think it was GA2100. And I liked it, but there were some shortcomings, or at least perceived shortcomings in my opinion. So I sold that to a friend. Hi Bill, if you're watching. Didn't hate that watch, obviously. There were a couple things that it didn't do that I wanted it to do. And so I let that one go to my friend Bill for a reasonable amount of money. Not too much, it didn't soak him too badly. Oh, did you guys notice the knife I opened it up with? Manix 2XL, baby. Anyway, ordered this one after selling the other one. International warranty. Man, this destruction booklet looks even bigger than the previous ones that I've gotten. Oh dear Lord, okay. And the watch itself. Now, guys, when I tell you this is really the unboxing, like I have not popped this out prior to. I've ordered this watch thinking that it would take care of the perceived shortcomings, hopefully. But at least looking at the initial reviews and everything, I think this might be kind of filling in the gap of everything. Now, one thing I will say about this watch, I think it's slightly thicker than the previous one, the GA2100. This is the GAB2100, 1A1 if you're curious. Very slightly thicker and maybe slightly heavier. Read this first. Deutsch. Francais. Man, do they have English? If there is ever a issue with G-Shocks perennially, this is kind of one of them, right? Is the destructions. There we go. So I spent a couple of weeks with the G-Shock GAB2100, and I gotta tell you, it is really growing on me. Let me talk in general about G-Shocks. They have some downsides. One, if you looked at the unboxing, the instructions are a disaster. G-Shock instructions are awful. They give you very small print, every language on the planet, and it is a mess. Even if your eyes are really good, you probably just don't want to dig through those instructions. And it doesn't matter if you bought a $100 G-Shock or a $1,000 G-Shock, all the directions look the same. So that is a downside, and especially for a brand that has some higher end watches. So in theory, it's trying to occupy maybe a straddle, but some of their watches are, you know, competing in a price space where you're talking some really nice watches. Two, the user interface on G-Shock watches kind of sucks. Which button does what? Which combination of buttons does what? Every G-Shock watch I've ever had those same issues. There are two others that plague some G-Shock watches, but not all. Here's might be an upside, might be a downside, but the 6-band automatic timekeeping sounds like this amazing thing, right? The watch just magically sets itself. You never have to worry about it. In practice, for me, what I always saw with that is that it would occasionally synchronize, but a lot of times it would not, especially around daylight savings time. Now, if daylight savings time does not plague you, then it's not an issue. But for me, daylight savings time would happen. Any of the timekeeping devices in or around my house that automatically set would just automatically set. Things like the microwave and the stove that do not have any automatic time switching capability, I would just go set. However, my 6-band watch, this one to be exact, we've talked about it in another video, and a nice watch, I like it, it would not set. It just wouldn't. I would actually force it to synchronize and try and put it in different places around the house to get that signal. It would just fail and fail and fail and fail. Undoubtedly, a day, maybe 2, maybe 3 later, it would catch back up and it would be correct again. But for that time frame, it was exceptionally frustrating. Some G-Shocks also have an internal battery with no solar capability, and that I consider to be a downside as well. Here's the thing, and I'm actually wearing the GAB2100 right now. That's how much I like this watch. When it comes to those downsides, it either kind of avoids them entirely or at least mitigates them. One, when it comes to the awful instructions, yes, it comes with those awful instructions, but there is an application that you can use with that watch and you can get the directions through it, and most of the features are available through that app via a Bluetooth connection. I like that a lot. Two, when it comes to the user interface, some of those functions, like I said, they're actually straight through the app, so you don't have to remember which button combination does what, how to set alarms, reminders, things like that. Now, you could argue that with a smartphone in your pocket, alarms and reminders might be not useful in a watch, but some people want their watch to do that, so you can certainly do that through the Bluetooth interface. Like I said, the instruction manual is in there as well, including like what buttons do what, and it literally gives you the opportunity to just click on something and it tells you. So that I thought was pretty frigging awesome. Speaking of applications, there are two different applications that look like they will work with this watch. The Casio watches, I'll put up a screenshot. That is the application that you want to use. You do not want to use the G-Shock one for whatever reason. That one only works with things like the Mudmaster, Rangemaster. It is a very specific application for a very narrow set of G-Shock watches. So for this watch, make sure you use the Casio watches. That is the application that you want to use. Now, when it comes to timekeeping, I found that synchronizing this watch through Bluetooth was a much easier proposition than the 6-band thing, where hopefully it gets the signal from NIST, but most of the time, like I said, in my experience, it does not. Now, if you are a stickler for time and you want your watch to be dead accurate, I got 3 different little mini videos. One, here's where I'm checking the watch versus NIST, and this hasn't been synchronized for probably a good 5 days, 6 days. So it has slid a little bit, right? You're talking about, it's about a second off if you look at it. Then second video, I have synchronized it. I've done the Bluetooth connect, and now it is resynchronized and it's much less off, but you can tell it's still slightly off. It's not perfect. But that said, when I compared it to my watch that does set itself via NIST, and there's that third video, you can see that it's slightly off as well. Now, in none of these situations was that time more than a second plus or minus. But if you are a stickler, like you're OCD for time, then understand that really none of these watches are giving me the most perfect time. And as a side note, I can force my watch to synchronize via Bluetooth whenever I want. I could do it now, I could do it 10 times a day, but it didn't seem to do it automatically. Like, I let it go. The last time I did it was on July 4th. Today is, I think, the 9th. It just wouldn't synchronize on its own. If I looked in the history, the last time it synchronized was the 4th. So, but then when I forced it to synchronize, everything was good again. Lastly, the battery issue. Now, both of these watches, my old Aviator series and this GAB, they're both solar. So as long as they get some light some of the time, they are going to just continue to run. I did have a solar watch. I think this was, I want to say probably over a decade ago, and it lasted about 10 years, and then the capacitor just died. A solar watch sounds like a forever watch. In my experience, it's about a 10-year watch. Then you are dealing with probably either a service or replacement of that watch in order to get a watch that runs again. Now, I realize this is niche. We're going down into the weeds when it comes to things like that. I think in the modern generation, people just mostly don't wear watches, or if they do, it's more a fashion statement than a timekeeping device. But for me, I almost always gravitate to my wrist when I'm trying to find out what time it is, despite having my cell phone with me at all times for the most part. Back to, I guess, the bottom line is I very much like this watch. I think it is really kind of the sweet spot in terms of fashion, in terms of cost, because it wasn't horribly expensive. And it's certainly more expensive than a $20 or $30, Walmart, Casio, whatever watch. But for that extra price, you get the G-Shock durability, water resistance, and in this case, solar power, the ability to synchronize the time through Bluetooth, so you don't have to worry about trying to set the time on your watch and keep it updated pretty regularly by doing that. The Bluetooth also gives you access to all of those functions that I find to be kind of difficult in terms of user interface. Is it button A? Is it button B, C, or D? Hell, which button is A, B, C, or D? At some point, I start to lose track. And if you forget, with this watch, you can just go in the app and refresh your memory. So overall, guys, I really like this watch. I don't want to make this video super long or boring, and I know that watch reviews are a little out of my standard wheelhouse, but I like watches and they're very useful in my job, probably, or maybe in your job as well. Take care, stay safe. If this has been helpful for you at all, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it, and all those usual YouTube things, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Get 'em, Jay.